This is the breaking news that we are getting to you now. Remember, the AgustaWestland case again is back to haunt the then UPA government. And why we say this, remember, is because there's an entire charge sheet now that has been filed in the Delhi court, the details of which have been accessed by Republic TV. And we are given to understand that this charge sheet is also containing details of how politicians got kickbacks from the scam, and also about how Tyagis and the Khaitans managed to get those kickbacks. Our colleagues Shravan and Nalini, both with us, breaking more details of that story here. And the first to you, Shravan, what more do we know about what it contains? What are the names that it mentions?
Well, in fact, this is the fresh evidence that was actually submitted by the Indian government to the Dubai authorities for the extradition of Christian Michel. This is the latest evidence to say so with regards to Christian Michel, where the enforcement directorate basically carried out this entire investigation. Remember, in this particular charge sheet, there is certainly a mention of how a second channel was essentially established through Christian Michel to pay bribes to bureaucrats as well as politicians in India to swing the deal in favor of AgustaWestland. What's not known here is the names of those bureaucrats as well as politicians, because this particular charge sheet doesn't really go into details with regards to who are these politicians or, for that matter, bureaucrats. But what this charge sheet essentially does is goes into details with regards to the web of companies that were essentially used by the Tyagi family as well as the other accused in this particular case, that is Carlo Gerosa as well as Hashki. Remember, these were the key persons as far as this entire deal is concerned. 34 people have already been named in this particular charge sheet as an accused. Remember, they've got into full details as to how bribe money was basically being routed through multiple companies. These are basically shell companies that were utilized to basically route the money. And not just that, the fact here is that how they've also been talking about two very important characters, that is Shivani Saxena as well as Rajiv Saxena. Remember, what the Indian government has also told the Dubai authorities is that as far as fresh evidence is concerned with regards to Christian Michel, one particular link that has essentially emerged is that of Shivani Saxena's husband, Rajiv Saxena, who owns companies in Dubai, and how basically there is a link between Christian Michel and that with Rajiv Saxena, who has also been named as an accused in this particular charge sheet that Republic TV has accessed. So clearly what one can say at this point in time is that what the government is looking at is somewhere down the line also convincing the Dubai authorities to basically extradite Christian Michel, who's now been granted bail by a Dubai court. But remember, on 26th of this month, when the hearing basically comes up, this particular issue with regards to fresh evidence against Christian Michel would also be placed before the Dubai authorities. It remains to be seen whether the Dubai authorities take cognizance of it and really act upon this entire new evidence that has been presented by the Indian government.
All right, and Shravan, you know, we are actually putting our images of that charge sheet that you and Nalini have been able to access for us on the left of our screens. And I want Nalini to let us, get more details about the specifics of this entire charge sheet, Nalini, because I think it's confirmed that politicians did get kickbacks. It's confirmed that Indian officials also got bribes. And there is, in fact, that entire code, Nalini, which is talking about a family. It's talking of perhaps politicians when it says POL. It's talking about some Auditor General. What really are these different codes then?
Well, Dipti, the essence of this entire charge sheet that has been filed by the Enforcement Directorate is that middlemen like Christian Michel as well as Carlos Gerosa as well as Hashke in this entire AgustaWestland scam were used to actually ensure that politicians as well as official bureaucrats within India get kickbacks not only in cash but also in their bank accounts from AgustaWestland to ensure that this entire VVIP chopper deal actually goes through. And the kind of details that are coming out of this entire charge sheet filed by the Enforcement Directorate are extremely shocking. What we're being told is that this is almost 29 million euros that were in fact laundered in this entire scam using not only these middlemen, as I previously mentioned, but also the Tyagi brothers, including SP Tyagi himself, who was the Indian Air Force chief at that time. In fact, the charge sheet also goes on to say that SP Tyagi went ahead and not only abused his position but also misused the power that he actually enjoyed as the IAF chief, and through the Ministry of Defence there were several illegalities that all of them actually indulged into, the eventual beneficiaries of which were these politicians, were these bureaucrats. Now, like Shawan was pointing out, the names of these politicians as well as bureaucrats are not mentioned in this particular charge sheet, but the charge sheet clearly says that politicians and bureaucrats were the eventual beneficiaries of the entire AgustaWestland scam. Now, considering that we are talking about this scam, we also know details of the kickbacks, the kind of kickbacks that were received not only by the politicians and the bureaucrats, but also by several companies that were involved in this entire transaction of 29 million euros actually being laundered in the entire scam. So a very crucial role was played by these middlemen. The charge sheet goes into details of exactly how this entire money was laundered originating from AgustaWestland, of course, and finally reaching its final beneficiaries back in India. So the kind of details that the entire charge sheet goes into are absolutely incriminating. And of course, no names have emerged yet of exactly who these politicians are, but we can expect more details to come out as the investigation continues to be underway.
All right, so money was exchanged, kickbacks were paid, Shawan, and it's important now, I think. The next obvious question is, who were these politicians, who were these bureaucrats? What is the kind of money, Shawan, we are talking about? And I think the investigative agency has also been able to recover some kind of a money trail here.
Well, the Enforcement Directorate has essentially been working on one important factor. That is, where does the money move and where does the money go and what exactly has been the movement like. Now, they have gone at length to basically detail with regards to this web of companies and how this entire money essentially was being routed. Remember, not to forget the fact that Christian Michel was the person who had actually received the bribe money, and this particular charge sheet does make a mention of the bribe that was actually given the commission that was actually given to Christian Michel to ensure that he, being an influential person, because remember, this is a person who has connections here in India, the fact that his father was well known to a lot of Indian politicians, he was basically exploiting all the connections, and he was basically given this particular task that you need to swing this particular deal in favor of AgustaWestland, and that is exactly what Christian Michel perhaps was actually working on. And what this particular charge sheet does is that they've gone into full details with regards to the number of companies that have already been attached, and they are looking at least some sort of a recovery in terms of money, because they believe, the Enforcement Directorate essentially believes that public exchequer money has been exploited by for that matter at that point in time the UPA government. And more importantly, the fact here is that how this particular deal has actually short-sighted other competitors in the market.